The wind bit through the thin jacket Samuel wore as he stepped out of the small thrift shop where he worked part-time. It was late evening, and the skies had already dimmed to a muted blue, the kind that made the street lamps flicker reluctantly to life. His shift had gone longer than expected, and though his back ached from lifting boxes all day, his mind was weighed down by something heavier. Rent was due in 2 days, and he was short. Very short. Life had not been easy since the factory closed 8 months ago. He had been one of the last to leave, lingering in the wide, echoing space as though the lingering smell of machine oil and warm steel could somehow tell him everything would be okay. But promises like that don't hang around in empty buildings. Walking home, he slipped his cold hands into his pockets, searching unconsciously for warmth. His fingers brushed against a single crinkled dollar. One. Just one. He stared at it for a long moment when he pulled it out, illuminated by the glow of the street lamp. A single bill that looked more tired than he felt. "Guess it's you and me," he murmured, folding it carefully and tucking it back into his wallet as though it had more value if treated gently. As he approached the bus stop, he noticed a woman sitting on the bench, thin shoulders hunched, clutching a little boy who looked no older than 5. The boy's cheeks were flushed red with cold, and his tiny fingers peeked out from sleeves a size too small. They didn't seem to be waiting for the bus. They didn't even look at the road. Samuel hesitated. He was tired, cold, and hungry. He had nothing to give, not really. But something tugged at him, a familiar ache that reminded him of the nights he and his mother once huddled together, depending on people who had far less reason to be kind. He walked over slowly. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were red, not from the cold but from hours of held-back tears. "We're fine," she said quickly, but her voice trembled. "Bus not coming?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "We're not waiting for the bus. We're just sitting. It's warmer here than where we were." Samuel nodded, understanding immediately. Bus shelters, thin as they were, blocked the wind better than open streets. The boy looked at Samuel with wide brown eyes, the kind that asked silent questions. "Are you hungry?" Samuel asked before he could stop himself. The woman stiffened, embarrassed. "No, we." But her son whispered, barely audible, "Mommy, my tummy hurts." Samuel felt something hot break inside him. The dollar in his pocket suddenly felt heavier than a brick. He shouldn't. He couldn't. He had rent to think of. He had bills. He had nothing extra, nothing at all. But the boy's shaking shoulders made the decision for him long before his mind could catch up. "There's a convenience store across the street," Samuel said softly. "Come on. Let's get you something warm." The woman looked torn between pride and desperation. "Sir. I don't have anything to give you." "I'm not asking for anything," he assured her. "Just a warm meal for the little guy. That's all." She hesitated, then nodded, gathering her son close. Inside the store, the warm air felt like a blessing. Samuel reached into his wallet and stared at the single dollar again. He felt foolish. What could $1 even buy? But he scanned the aisles anyway, refusing to surrender to the thought that kindness had a price tag. The woman hovered behind him, clearly uncomfortable but too hopeful to walk away. Samuel approached the counter. "Sir, is there anything here for $1?" he asked quietly. The store owner, an older man with silver hair and thick glasses, peered at him curiously. $1? Maybe a small coffee. Or a candy bar. Samuel swallowed. Coffee wouldn't help the boy. Candy wouldn't fill him. He clenched the dollar in his hand. The boy tugged at his sleeve. "It's okay. Mommy says wishes don't need money." Samuel blinked, throat tightening. "Yeah, sometimes they don't." The store owner looked at the family behind Samuel, the woman trying but failing to hide her worry, the boy rubbing his stomach, the shivering in their shoes. "How long since you two ate?" the owner asked suddenly. The woman froze. "We're fine," she whispered. The owner shook his head. "I didn't ask if you're fine. I asked when you ate." She looked down. "Not since yesterday." Samuel felt his heart split cleanly into two. Without another word, the store owner stepped out from behind the counter and walked to the small hot food section, one Samuel had been avoiding because he knew it was out of reach. He packed 2 cups of soup, warm and steaming, and added a sandwich. He returned to the counter and placed the items down. "Total is," he paused deliberately, then said, $1. Samuel looked up, eyes wide. "Sir, that's the price today," the owner said firmly, as if daring anyone to challenge him. Samuel placed his last dollar on the counter with reverence, as though it were worth far more than the ink it carried. The owner took it gently, giving him a nod full of unspoken understanding. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, both of you." Samuel handed the boy the warm soup. The child cupped it like it was sunlight, inhaling deeply before taking careful sips. A soft hum of relief escaped him. They all stepped outside together, and though the night was still sharp and cold, something felt different, softer, warmer, as if generosity itself had pulled up a seat beside them. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Samuel asked quietly. The woman nodded faintly. "There's a shelter a few blocks away, but they were full earlier. They said maybe later tonight." "I can walk with you," he offered. "It's not safe out here." "You've already done enough," she replied. "It's all right," he said with a small smile. "I've got time." They walked together through dim streets. The boy held Samuel's hand, not afraid, just trusting. The shelter's lights glowed faintly ahead, a fragile promise in a dark night. At the entrance, the woman turned to him. "I don't know your name." "Samuel," he said. "Thank you, Samuel," she whispered. "You gave us more than food." He shook his head. "It was just $1. "No," she countered gently. "It was everything you had." Her words hit him harder than the cold ever could. The shelter door opened then, and a volunteer waved them in. "We've got space now, come inside." The woman gave Samuel one last grateful look before guiding her son in. The door closed softly behind them, leaving him alone in the quiet street. He exhaled, a long sigh that carried both relief and a lingering ache. His wallet was empty, but his heart carried something he hadn't felt in months: purpose. He turned to head home when the store owner's voice suddenly echoed from behind him. "You walk fast for someone who gave away his last dollar," the man called out, stepping out from his car near the shelter. Samuel froze. "How did you?" "I saw you walking them here," the owner said. "Most people don't give that kind of time. Or money. Especially when they don't have enough." Samuel shrugged, embarrassed. It was just what anyone would do. The owner smiled knowingly. "You'd be surprised how many wouldn't." He stepped closer. "What's your situation, son? You look like someone who carries more weight than he admits." Samuel didn't know why, but the truth came tumbling out: the factory, the rent, the worry that never seemed to loosen its grip. The owner listened quietly. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. "I run a supply warehouse. We're short-handed. Hours aren't perfect, but the pay is fair. If you're willing, come by tomorrow morning." Samuel stared at the card, stunned. "Are you serious?" "As serious as someone who just saw generosity in its rarest form," the man replied. "I believe in hiring people with good hearts. Skills can be taught. Character cannot." Emotion surged up Samuel's throat so fast he barely managed a nod. "Thank you. I won't waste this." "I know you won't," the man said warmly before waving goodnight and heading back to his car. Samuel walked home through streets that suddenly looked less bleak, less unforgiving. The night hadn't changed, but something inside him had. The world still felt heavy, yes, but now there was a small crack where light could slip through. That night, lying in his small apartment, Samuel thought about the woman, her son, and the store owner. He thought about how one tired dollar bill, a single piece of paper he had almost dismissed as useless, had somehow carried enough weight to shift the course of 3 lives. He thought about how generosity had found him even when he believed he had nothing left to give. The next morning, Samuel arrived at the warehouse early, the card clutched tightly in his hand. The owner greeted him with a handshake and a proud smile. "Welcome to the team," he said. Samuel began working that day, starting fresh with tasks that were tiring but honest. Work that made him feel capable again. Work that promised stability inch by inch. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to steady. Rent was paid. Meals were regular. The fear that had lived in his chest for months softened. One afternoon, as Samuel was sorting inventory, the office phone rang. The owner called him over. "It's for you," he said with a small grin. Samuel frowned, confused. "For me?" He took the phone. "Hello?" A familiar voice answered shyly. "Samuel? It's me. Clara. The woman from the bus stop." "How are you?" he asked, smiling instinctively. "We're good," she said, voice warm. "The shelter helped us find a small apartment. I found a part-time job at a bakery. And I wanted you to know, my son, Daniel, talks about you all the time. He calls you the man who made the world warm." Samuel felt his throat tighten again. "I'm glad you're both okay." "We are," she whispered. Because a stranger didn't walk past. Because someone believed $1 could still change something. After their call, Samuel stood quietly for a long moment, absorbing the truth of it. Generosity wasn't measured by how much someone had to give. It was measured by the heart that chose to give anyway. And sometimes, it found you exactly when you thought you had nothing left, like a last dollar crinkled in a cold pocket on a hard night. A month later, on his way home, Samuel passed the same bus stop where it had all begun. He paused, looking at the empty bench. The wind was sharp again. The world was still imperfect. But his heart felt full in a way he never expected. He reached into his wallet and smiled at what he found there, a single dollar bill resting among others now. He pulled it out, smooth and crisp, and tucked it carefully into the corner of the bench. Not for anyone specific. Just for whoever needed a reminder that kindness never ran out. And that sometimes, generosity didn't just find the last dollar. Sometimes, the last dollar found generosity.